Okay, if you've got your Bibles, you can open up to Isaiah 28. We're going to be working through the whole chapter. It's a decent length chapter, but it tells one story. It's one clear message that is really central to the message that Isaiah is sharing. If you've been following along with this, you know we're in the book of Isaiah. Working through, it's a big book, so you've got to sort of cherry pick certain passages throughout it that highlight the key themes, and that's what we're doing today. But before we delve into it, I wanted to ask a question, and it's a question that's going to require some self-reflection and some honesty. The more honest you are, the more you might get out of it. And so let's get a little real this morning with one another, a little personal. I don't want you to share it with anybody around you, but just think to yourself. I'm going to ask this question. How good are you at putting into practice good advice? How good are you at putting into practice good advice? There's already some laughter. You're thinking of others, not yourself. You're thinking of yourself. There's a lot in that question, isn't there? What is good advice? Some advice, depends who gives it. Your physiotherapist, you've just had an injury and you go to the physio and the physio says, right, now for the next 6 weeks, I need you to do this amount of exercise, half an hour every day. I need you to do this movement, okay? And you need to... Now, if you don't, you may lose full mobility. You know, your recovery's going to take... Are you the type of person who goes, yep, and you are diligent and you do it every day for half an hour and do all the exercise? Or is it like for the first day, it's like, yeah, I've got this. And day 2, it's like, yeah, and day 3, it's like, 20 minutes will be enough, and by a week it's gone. Like, is that you? That's probably me. You are at school, and your teacher tells you that you have to prepare for final exams. And really, you should be doing half an hour per subject every afternoon, okay? Just revision, okay? And you're going to be needing to do this for the next 5 weeks in the lead up to exams. That'll put you in good stead if you really want to do well. Are you the type of student who goes, okay, yes, that's my teacher said this is what I need to do, that's what I'll do. Or are you the type of person who goes, I don't need to do that, I know better than the teacher. They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they've only taught thousands of children over the past 20 years. What would they know about learning? Are you the type of person who's good at putting good advice into practice? Here's another question. Who do you listen to? Who do you listen to in life? Who do you respect? Who, when they say something, you go, okay. Your accountant, maybe? To take on board. A police officer? Your spouse? Your parents? Who do you listen to? Are there different people for different topics? I'll listen to that person for that, but then I would never trust them for that. I think if you're honest with yourself, you'll recognise that you're not the most compliant person. You don't always listen to good advice. And even if you do hear it and you go, that is good advice, at times you'll put it into practice and other times you won't. And why? It beats me. Everything in me wants to do the right thing, but I don't. At times, I want to listen. And there's times where I just go, no, I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to do it my way as well. To look at it maybe from another angle, we could say there's also times when we listen to bad advice, isn't there? Do you ever follow bad advice at times? I think we do. This is pretty much what happens when we're talking about peer pressure, isn't it? There's a famous experiment that was conducted by Solomon Asch. Famous experiment where he got people to go into a room with a number of other fellow participants. Now, what the participant didn't know is that they were all part of the experiment. And so you would go in and there would be 7 others come in and walk in, and you'd be asked a very simple question, like an easy question. This was the question. Here is a line on this card. Now you need to tell me what line on the second card is the same length as that first line, A, B or C. Now, without any influence at all, I guarantee, I think, about 97% of you would get that right. But in the experiment, the participant went last, and all the other 7 people before said A, A, A. Yeah, I think it's A. Yep, definitely A. Yep, A, A. And so by the time it got to the person who was the participant experiment, what do you think they said? Now, 2/3 said C. But 1/3 of people, because of the pressure, because of everything that had gone before, said A. They went along with it. And there's been a ton of study and research into how we can influence people, how we can get them to do things that they may not necessarily do on their own. I mean, that's the whole point of social media, isn't it? It's the whole point of marketing, advertising. We're bombarded and surrounded by messages trying to pressure us and push us down a certain path without us even realising. This is why in the media this week there's been all the hoo-ha about the legislation being proposed around a ban on social media for kids under 16. Because we recognise that it is having an impact on how people think. It's really important. And this is what Isaiah is going to be talking about today. This is really at the heart of what Isaiah has to put forward today. Who is speaking into your life? Who do you trust? Who do you listen to? Whose advice do you follow? So let's get into it. Isaiah 28. It's a big chapter we're going to go through verse by verse, well, chunk by chunk at least, and have a good look at what is being said here. So Isaiah 28. So already in the book of Isaiah, we've seen that Isaiah's had this vision of a holy God in the throne room. This vision, holy, holy, holy. And this holy God has cleansed him of his sin by touching his lips with the coal from the altar. And he said, who's going to go now for me and speak on my behalf? Isaiah puts his hand up. He's gone out, he's already gone, and he's spoken of the destruction of Babylon, the great enemies of God, and the warning to Israel. And remember, they're in 2 kingdoms. The people of God are split. There's a king in the northern kingdom of Israel, and the capital is Samaria. And there's a kingdom in the south with Jerusalem as its capital, with a king in place there. And so the kingdom at the moment is sort of split. And here in Isaiah 28, he's going to sort of speak about the northern kingdom and say what's going to happen to it, but he's really talking about it as a warning. He's really speaking to the southern kingdom, saying, look what I'm doing with those in the north, okay? So you don't want the same thing to happen. So that's where we're up to. So Isaiah 28, verses 1 to 4. What sorrow awaits the proud city of Samaria, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel. Don't you love that sentence? When I first read that, I had to read that a few times. This may be the first time you've ever heard of Sermon Isaiah 28. There'll be some language here you may have never heard before. But what sorrow awaits, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel. It sits at the head of a fertile valley, but its glorious beauty will fade like a flower. It is the pride of a people brought down by wine. For the Lord will send a mighty army against it, like a mighty hailstorm and a torrential rain. They will burst upon it like a surging flood and smash it to the ground. The proud city of Samaria, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel, will be trampled beneath its enemies' feet. It sits at the head of a fertile valley, but its glorious beauty will fade like a flower. Whoever sees it will snatch it up, as an early fig is quickly picked and eaten. It doesn't take too much to see what's happening here. God is saying that this city, the great capital city that you take such pride in, that you wear as a crown on your head, is going to be destroyed. Much like the very first fig on the tree. People are so excited. They've waited so long for this fruit to finally arrive and bear fruit, that they can't wait, and the first chance they get, they and gobble it up. Like, that's how quickly it's going to be gone. It doesn't take much to understand what's going on here. He goes on in verses 5 to 6. Then at last, the Lord of heaven's armies will himself be Israel's glorious crown. He will be the pride and joy of the remnant of his people. He will give a longing for justice to their judges. He will give great courage to their warriors who stand at the gates. See the contrast here. You wear your city. You take great pride in all you've achieved and this great capital. You wear it like a crown. But that will be destroyed, and then God can be your crown. God can be the thing you take pride in, the thing you boast about. But there's this subtle hint of the fruit that those things bear, isn't it? We saw with the crown of Samaria of the drunks of Israel. What does that lead to? What's the fruit of wearing this crown? Well, it seems to be a lack of justice, that there's a drunkenness, that they're brought down by wine. It's not very good. But when the crown of God is placed on their head, it says there'll be pride and joy. He will give a longing for justice to their judges. He'll give great courage to their warriors. There's positive benefits from putting God on as your crown. He goes on and to explain this a little more in verses 7 to 10. Now, however, Israel is led by drunks who reel with wine and stagger with alcohol. The priests and prophets stagger with alcohol and lose themselves in wine. I mean, just think about that for a moment. Imagine I'm up here drunk, leading you all. Or at lunchtime I get sloshed with as we're gathering. Like, there's this weird image. You go, what? And they're our leaders? They're the people guiding us, making decisions? I don't think so. They reel when they see visions and stagger as they render decisions. Their tables are covered with vomit. Filth is everywhere. Who does the Lord think we are, they ask. Who does he speak? Why does he speak to us like this? Are we little children just recently weaned? He tells us everything over and over, one line at a time, a little here and a little there. Interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Does God not know that we're big enough to see the big picture? Why does he treat us like little children? Why, does he not know there's armies? We're facing really big problems. We've got armies, other nations threatening to come and destroy us. Remember a few weeks ago we looked at the fear that was motivating them. They were afraid for their lives. They were grasping at solutions, whatever they could find. Does he not know this? And yet he just tells us little bit by little bit, like we're little children, like we can't be trusted. Who is this God? There's a questioning of God here. He just gives us a little bit by little bit. And what I get from that is they don't like this feeling of having to trust him. They're not comfortable trusting God, are they? They're questioning God. How dare he treat us like children? I can't believe it. So they go and make their plans instead. But Isaiah says, verses 11 to 13, so now God will have to speak to his people through foreign oppressors who speak a strange language. God has told his people, here is a place of rest. Let the weary rest here. This is a place of quiet rest. But they would not listen. So the Lord will spell out his message for them again, one line at a time, one line at a time, a little here and a little there, so that they will stumble and fall. They will be injured, trapped, and captured. Whinging and complaining about God. This is a story as old as time, isn't it? Story as old as time. The fight of a child to be independent from its parents. For individuals to spread their wings and find their freedom, find their own way in life. For the next generation to shape the world around them. This is the way of things, isn't it? Think of it from a child's perspective. None of us like being told what to do at all. Really, not all of the time. There's something in us that wants to be independent. We want to grow up and make decisions on our own, and that's a healthy and good thing. To enact on this power of autonomy and that we have growing inside us. We want to be able to go and be our own person. But think of it from a parent's perspective. We've got a name for it, empty nest syndrome, where this sense of loss and of sadness and of grief almost as our children grow up and they no longer want to listen to us. They no longer want to spend time with us. They want a sense of joy and happiness as well, because it's good and right that as parents we raise our children to get to the point where they are independent, where they can go and be good contributors to the community and society, and they're now adults. This happens all the time. Is it like that with God, though? Is it like that with God? As his children, are they right in crying, God, why don't you trust us? Why don't you give us the whole plan? Why don't you treat us like adults, like we know what we're doing? Do we have a right to complain as children like that? Is God the selfish parent here, going, no, I'm going to keep you on a leash. I'm never going to give you enough where you know everything. Only I will, and I'll just keep you. Is that what's happening here? Or is God different? Is God different? Is God greater than a parent? Do we ever stop being his children? Now, I'm sure again, if we stop and reflect, just stop and think for a moment, a serious thought to ourselves, I'm sure you can see moments in your life where you've sort of rebelled and raged against God a little. And God, well, God, why don't you just tell me all the information? Why do I have to trust you? Why do I have to... Come on, what are you doing, God? I don't understand. Stop treating me like a child. I want to know. Israel was trusting in their own strength, in their own plans, but they ended up being wiped out by Assyria. That we know from history. Isaiah, though, is talking to the southern kingdom, going, don't let the same thing happen to you. Don't let the same thing happen here in the southern kingdom. Because currently they were making plans to align themselves and get help and support from Egypt to face off against their oppressors. They were making the same mistake. We'll make our plans. We don't care what you're doing, God. Let's go make our plans. Let's use all our wisdom, all our knowledge, everything we understand. Let's forge ahead with our best plans. Let's do that. And I don't care what God has to say. They were faced with this decision. Do we rely on our human strength and wisdom instead of God? Isaiah 28 verses 14 to 22 goes on with Isaiah's message to them. Therefore, listen to this message from the Lord, you scoffing rulers in Jerusalem. You boast, we have struck a bargain to cheat death and have made a deal to dodge the grave. The coming destruction can never touch us, for we have built a strong refuge made of lies and deception. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am placing a foundation stone in Jerusalem, a firm and tested stone. It is a precious cornerstone that is safe to build on. Whoever believes need never be shaken. I will test you with the measuring line of justice and the plumb line of righteousness. Since your refuge is made of lies, a hailstorm will knock it down. Since it is made of deception, a flood will sweep it away. I will cancel the bargain you made to cheat death, and I will overturn your deal to dodge the grave. when the terrible enemy sweeps through, you will be trampled into the ground. Again and again that flood will come, morning after morning, day and night, until you are carried away. This message will bring terror to your people. The bed you have made is too short to lie on. The blankets are too narrow to cover you. The Lord will come, as he did against the Philistines at Mount Perazim and against the Amorites in Gibeon. He will come to do a strange thing. He will come to do an unusual deed. For the Lord of heaven's armies, has plainly said that he is determined to crush the whole land. So scoff no more, or your punishment will be even greater. The most frightening verse in that is that the bed you've made is too short to lie on. I don't know about you, I'm 6'2". A single bed does not cut it for me. My feet hang over the edge. There's nothing more uncomfortable than a bed, or being short-sheeted. Anything like that. I mean, it's funny language, isn't it? It's like, okay, guys, you've all slept in a bed that's uncomfortable. This is what you're doing. You're making a bed that just doesn't fit. It's going to be horrible. Look at it. You've entered into this bargain with Egypt based on deception and lies. You've cheated your way into it, promising, oh, yeah, we'll be allies, and you've got no intention. You're just trying to get whatever you can. You're trying to use them. But that will come to nothing. In fact, I'll make sure it comes to nothing, because it is nothing. But look at what I am doing. I am doing a strange thing. A strange thing. I'm setting up a cornerstone that through this whole time of destruction, it will not move. It will not move. And he makes reference here to two battles that took place in the past. In verse 21, the Lord will come as he did against the Philistines at Mount Perazim. This is referring to a battle that took place between King David when he first became king in Israel. As he was anointed king, literally, they came rushing in saying, David, the Philistines are attacking. They've come up again. They've heard that you've been made king, and they've come up to basically destroy us and wipe us out. And so David seeks God and says, should I go out and fight? And God says, yes, go fight. I'll hand them into your hands. Yep, no problem. So they goes out saying, God's given us the victory. And they go out and they drive them off. But they come back again in bigger numbers. And you could think, well, God, why are they back? Why didn't you just give them to us last time? We could have destroyed them, wiped them out last time. Why are we having to fight this same battle again? This just seems odd. But this time God says, right, you'll win, but I want you to do this. I want you to circle around the back of them this time and wait. There's a place with lots of trees. And as you wait in that place with trees, I want you to wait and not attack until you hear the sound of a marching army in the treetops. Now, it doesn't say what that is. I can only imagine it's like the heaven's armies come out to march with them. And then when you hear that, then attack. And they attack and they wipe them all out. Great victory. But again, so God wins in the end, but he did he do it the way we wanted him to do it? No. I would have wanted to wipe them out first go. It seems odd we'd have to do this again a second time. But you know what? God wins in the end. And the second one, go out against the Amorites at Gibeon. Again, this is Israelites coming into the promised land for the first time. Joshua heading up the people, and they get news that one of the towns that they've made a deal with, that they've come into a pact with and of support, that they're under attack because all the 5 Amorite kings have come to attack them. And so they race overnight to get there to meet the battle. And as they get there, it becomes apparent that God's really winning this battle. So it says that God sends hailstones, giant hailstones down to beat down on the enemy army. In fact, more die from the hailstones than they do from actual fighting. The day's not long enough, though. It looks like they're going to escape. The enemy's going to get away. And this will have to be a battle that's fought another day. Joshua cries out to God, God, give us more time. Like, stop the sun where it is so we can fight to the last man. And God does it. He it says he's never done this before, he'll never do it again. The sun stood still in its place where it was all day, so that it had enough time to go and finish the job. In fact, Joshua 10:14 says, there's never been a day like this, one before or since, when the Lord answered such a prayer. Surely the Lord fought for Israel that day. Isaiah's reminding them, remember, God doesn't do things your way. God is strange. God is odd. God can do things you never thought of. He does move in strange ways. You never would have guessed that was what he was planning. In fact, Isaiah and the Israelites never would have guessed what God was planning with the cornerstone, would they? So what do you mean he's building a cornerstone? What is this building? Is that the temple? Like, is it a new annex to the temple? Is he going to build what is that? Who knows? But are you going to be little children who cry, why don't you tell us everything, God? Or are you going to say, God, your ways are above my ways, your thoughts above mine, your actions are far greater than anything I can do? What crown will you put on your head? The crown of your great wisdom and understanding, of your great achievements, of your great city, whatever you take pride in, is that what you're going to wear with pride? And is that what you're going to put your trust in? Or will you put God on as your crown? And will you trust in him? This is the message of Isaiah to the people of God. And lest we think, well, that's because they were silly. It's so easy to point fingers at the Israelites and go, gee, they were stupid, isn't it? I mean, my goodness, if I was there, I would have trusted God. I would have believed. I would have turned and said, we're sorry, Lord, we repent. Please tell us what to do and we'll do it. How silly were they? And yet when we ask that question, how good are you at following good advice? Who do you listen to and trust? Have you ever followed bad advice? The answer to all that for all of us is, yeah, we're no different to the Israelites. We're no different to them. It's the same story that's been told again and again, a tale as old as time, that search for independence and that struggle to do things our way. And that might work in a parent-child relationship, but not with a God and son of, daughter of God relationship. God will always be God. And to drive the point home, Isaiah concludes this chapter, verse 23. Listen to me. Listen and pay close attention. Does a farmer always plough and never sow? Is he forever cultivating the soil and never planting? Does he not finally plant his seeds? Black cumin, wheat, barley, and emmer wheat, each in its proper way and each in its proper place. This image of a farm. Does a farmer only ever plough? Well, of course not. He only ever plough. There's a reason and a purpose behind everything a farmer does. And each of those things need to be done in order for there to be a harvest. This makes sense to us. The farmer knows just what to do in verse 26. For God has given him understanding. A heavy sledge is never used to thresh black cumin. Rather, it's beaten with a light stick. A threshing wheel is never rolled on cumin. Instead, it is beaten lightly with a flail. Grain for bread is easily crushed, so he doesn't keep on pounding it. He threshes it under the wheels of a cart, but he doesn't pulverise it. Now, I have no idea if any of that's true. Kind of makes sense a little bit. I'm just going to trust, for a farmer, you know that's what you do. It just makes sense because farmers know what they're doing. And here he rams the point home in the very last verse. The Lord of heaven's armies is a wonderful teacher, and he gives the farmer great wisdom. I like how God doesn't come out and just say it outright. Like there's a subtlety in this, isn't there? What's the implication of this? That God knows what he's doing. God knows what he's doing. He instructs the farmer. You look at the farmer and go, yeah, that farmer knows what he's doing. We should trust what he has to say. When he says, no, not the sledgehammer, the light stick. That's what you want. We trust him. We go, okay, you know what you're doing. We're meant to say at the end of this, you know what? I think God is the one who knows what he's doing. We should trust God. If God says don't make a deal with the Egyptians, don't turn to our foreign enemies, turn to me, ask me, look to me. Then maybe we should say, hey, I think God knows what he's doing. And we should do that very thing. So that is Isaiah's message. It will be repeated again and again over many years with the Israelites, with Judah down in the southern kingdom and Israel in the northern kingdom. It will be repeated again and again after that. It's been repeated again and again after Jesus. It's being repeated again today, isn't it? Who will you trust? What crown will you put on? But I'll end by looking back at verses 16, 17, where Isaiah describes a building project again with that cornerstone, and it will stand amid all the destruction. This ultimate, strange work of God. And he says so. Let me read it again. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am placing a foundation stone in Jerusalem, a firm and tested stone. It is a precious cornerstone that is safe to build on. Whoever believes need never be shaken. This is this strange thing God is doing. In fact, it may be the strangest of all things God's ever done. We would know it as Jesus, this cornerstone. We would look at the strange thing that he does as the cross. That he would send someone to die in order to claim victory, to be punished and beaten when they're innocent, to somehow set others free. It is just odd, so strange. But this is the God we serve. This is the God we serve. So I'd like to pray. We're going to sing a great song. The band can come up and get ready. Great song, Waymaker. I love the words of this song. You know, it's just, who is this God we serve? The one who makes a way, who does miracles, who does the unexpected, who is just amazing. And we're going to have a chance to declare that in a moment. But I want to end with a prayer from Charles Spurgeon, or a thought at least that might help us to pray. Because if you've been listening and you've been paying attention, you would have recognised the challenge today. It's a challenge we need to hear all the time. Daily, in fact, we need to make this decision. What crown will I put on? Will I take God to be my crown today? Will I trust him? Will I listen to him? Will I seek to serve him and be his child? Or not? Will I trust in my own wisdom, the wisdom of others? Will the wisdom the world has to offer? It is a challenge we all hear. But I want to just read his words as a way of praying. And if you're here today and you think, yeah, no, I choose God. Of course I choose God. Why would I not? Then join me in this prayer. I'm sure you'll resonate with it. And if you're not, if you're sitting on the fence going, I don't know if God's first in my life, I don't know if I want to trust him or not. His ways just seem too weird, too odd. I think I'd rather go my own way. Then you have something to wrestle with. And maybe that wrestle is worth taking a next step and talking to someone about that. And talking about why there's this reluctance, why you don't feel you can trust God. Maybe today's the day you can talk to someone about that. But let's pray. God's people will not be in a hurry to run away, for they shall not be overcome with the fear which causes panic. When others are flying here and there as if their wits had failed them, believers will be quiet, calm and deliberate. And so they will be able to act wisely in the hour of testing. What about me? Am I believing? And am I therefore keeping to the believer's pace, which is walking with God? Be at peace, fluttering spirit. O rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Amen.